Hello everyone, a very good morning. Thank you for joining our masterclass for 2019. This is the fourth class for this season, and I hope you enjoyed the previous one on implementing Windows Service Account security best practices. The next session is going to be on October 10th on privilege session management. A quick introduction about myself. I work as a product consultant here at ManageEngine, and it's been like 9 years now. As a product consultant, what I basically do is I deploy IT security solutions in organizations across the globe. And during the implementation stage, I get to interact with IT administrators and security experts and get to know their IT security challenges. With that experience in today's session, I will discuss about enabling password management best practices in a multi-vendor network environment. Let me first discuss about the recent breach which took place in one of the corporate VPN service provider, Citrix. Okay, so the hackers used an unsophisticated technique that throws commonly used weak passwords at a system until one works. Yes, you guessed it right. It's password spraying. So with password spraying, the hackers hack the Citrix network and they have stealed the business files from the Citrix network drive along with the drive link with its consulting practice. So what is password spraying? It's basically an attack that attempts to access large number of accounts. When I say accounts, it's nothing but the usernames with a few commonly used passwords. So the traditionally brute force attacks attempt to gain unauthorized access to a single account by guessing the password. This can quickly result in the target account getting locked out. As commonly used account lockout policies allow for a limited number of failed attempts, typically or 3 to 5 in uh, um, any given network for a set period of time. So, what is going to be different from brute force attack? So, with the password spray attack, which is also called as low and slow method, the malicious actor attempts a single commonly used password, such as password 1 or summer 2017, against many accounts before moving on to attempt a second password and so on. So this techniques allows the actor to remain undetected by avoiding rapid or frequent account lockouts. So that's the difference between the password spraying and a brute force. So with brute force, you can, if you have a account lockout practice or policy in place, it can detect it easily. Whereas password spraying, it's going to try the password once on each and every using every account in the network. So that's going to be a low and slow method, and it will not detect under the account lockout policy very easily. I'm not saying that it's not going to detect it, but still, compared to brute force attack, password spraying is a low and a slow method. All right. So the lesson learned from the Citrix data breaches, the password used is a very weak password, and it was easy for the attackers to guess it by doing a password spraying. Now, what are the steps which can be taken by any organization or even by Citrix? What could have they done to avoid being a victim of a password spraying attack, right? First, we should ensure that we have a strong second factor or multi-factor authentication mechanism across multiple systems. This way, even if attackers attack the first layer of authentication, you still have a second layer of authentication, and mostly second factor of authentications are time based, so it will keep generating a random passcodes, and that's going to be definitely secure and difficult for the attackers. So next thing is enforcing a strong password. So you have to have a password generator tool which basically allows you to generate a strong and a unique password for every device or every system in your network, and reset the privileged account periodically with a random generated unique passwords. So you have to have a proper schedule to reset all your privileged accounts, like every 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days, right? Depending on the criticality. Then the next one is resetting the passwords upon usage. So whenever a privileged account password is getting used, you have to immediately reset the password. And in order to do it, you should have strong workflow mechanism on how the passwords or how long the passwords should be valid, and after which the passwords has to be reset. And track the usage of these passwords. If possible, you can integrate your password management tool with your SIEM tools to make sure it has all the audit records sent to the SIEM tools, and from those tools you can generate notification and alerts which will basically tell you if a particular privileged account password is used multiple times. That will trigger an alert for you to take immediate action. And the last thing is you can also ensure that you're not revealing any of your sensitive credentials like passwords to your contractors or users when they need a privileged account password to perform a specific task. Also, a good to have procedure will be you can have a help desk tool with proper procedures on how the passwords has to be reset and logout has to be triggered. All right. So these are a few mechanisms which we can take, but definitely there are also several other measures which can be taken. I have just highlighted the few important points. So here, except for the first point on the MFA and the last one of having help desk tool with the documented procedure, a password management solution can help you to achieve all the other requirements related to enforcing strong passwords, resetting the passwords upon usage, and schedule password rotations, etc. Right? So, this way you can definitely avoid being a victim of such attacks. Next. So, we now know how to overcome, or we know the security measures which can be taken to avoid being a victim. However, what are the challenges which we face in managing the passwords, especially in a multi vendor environment? As we all know, each vendor have their own set of commands or procedures to reset the passwords. And once again, each and every vendor will have their own software versions, firmware, and which acts differently from one to other, right? So updating the passwords by connecting to each device or system or a server and changing it manually is going to be a really major task, and it requires major cost in allocating the resources. Again, every vendor have their own set of policy enforcement, so you have to generate the passwords manually based on the vendor requirements. So these are the two major challenges which you will face when it comes to resetting the password, especially in the multi-vendor environment, right? So now let me explain you the features available in ManageEngine Password Manager Pro, which can help you in overcoming these challenges. The first one is going to be the password policy, which will help you to define the structure and the complexity of the passwords to be used. You can either make use of a predefined policy, or you can create new policy that best suits your organization. Once you define the password policy, Password Manager Pro enforces that policy and reports on violation. The inbuilt password generator will generate passwords based on the policy defined. Now, let me jump into the product and let me show you how you can define the policies. So you can go to admin and you will see password policies, where you will have your own set of policies defined here. Let's say in today's session, I'm going to use extreme switch as an example, right? So I have an extreme switch which needs a policy requirement which has to be a minimum of 8 characters, maximum of 14 characters, and it should have numerals, mixed case, special characters, and the password should not begin with an alphabet. Also, the password cannot have the login name, and the maximum age for the password is going to be 30 days, and I'm not going to allow the last 5 passwords or 10 passwords to be used. So I have created my own password policy here called Extreme, right? And these are also the predefined policies which you can make use of. And let's say you have another vendor called FortiGate or F5, such that, right? So in that case, you can have one more policy created for that vendor specific requirements. So this way, you can have your random generated password policy, which can be created using the Password Manager Pro. So the next one is going to be on the password reset, right? So we have multiple network devices which can be accessed via a CLI. But when it comes to the managing the passwords, we have to launch a PuTTY session, get connected to the device, and reset the passwords manually one by one, which is definitely a difficult task. Am I right? So now let's see how ManageEngine Password Manager Pro will help you in managing those passwords, right? So in this tool, by default, we have few resource types. When I say resource types, like ASA firewall, Brocade, Cisco, so we have around like some 85 types for which Password Manager Pro can connect and manage the passwords, right? So once you have the predefined ones, in other words, for these devices, we know the commands to reset the passwords. So we have already bundled that inside the product. Okay, so now what you have to do is you can either discover the passwords, these network devices, by specifying a host name or the IP address range. For example, 192.168.2.1, and I'm going to give another example, 192.168.2.100. All right, I have given the range and I am going to create an SNMP profile. So basically, using this profile, Password Manager Pro will connect to the device and it will try to fetch the credentials, the device credentials from here. So I'm going to provide a read community value, save it, and I'm going to select this and click on discover. So what it will do is, using this SNMP profile, it will connect to all the devices in this range and it will fetch them automatically and show them inside Password Manager Pro. This is one way, and of course we also have manual ways where you can do it manually one by one, or you can import them from a comma separated or a tab separated file, right? So once your device is added inside the product, the very important step is you have to tell Password Manager Pro how to manage the password of that particular device. So in this case, let me take a Brocade SAN switch, right? So I have added the SAN switch here, but I have to tell Password Manager Pro how to reset or manage the password of this particular Brocade SAN. So I'm just selecting an account, I'm selecting a remote login account, and I'm also selecting a enable account here. So which means using the SSH protocol, the Password Manager Pro will connect to this Brocade SAN, and then first it will log in as a test account, and then it will go to the enable mode in order to get the privilege to reset or manage the passwords. Once I am done with it, the next step is I have configured the password reset successfully, and I can reset the passwords from this tool. When I'm resetting the passwords, I can generate the passwords based on the policy which has been defined by me. So I can simply generate a password. Even the password policy, for example, if I try to type in something like this manually, Password Manager Pro will not allow me to change the password. It will say the minimum length should be 8. So only if it generates, or only if I type in a password which matches the requirements based on the policy, I am allowed to change the password from this tool. So when I change the password, it will get connected to the target machine using the SSH or the Telnet protocol, and it will reset the password. So now we have seen an example for a SSH-based network device. So now let me show you a Unix server. Uh, so I have a resource here. So what I have to do is the same way for the Unix server, I have to configure a remote password reset where I have to select a normal account using which Password Manager Pro can connect to the device, and then elevate it either SUS root or use sudo privileges so that the account gets elevated, and then it can perform the password reset. So once this is done, I can even go ahead and start changing the password of this account based on the password policy which has been defined by me. All right. So this is another example which I would like to highlight here. So the steps involved for managing the passwords would be first adding the devices and a privileged account, and then configuring the remote password reset. Right. So now we know how to enforce a policy and how to perform a remote password reset. So the next topic is going to be on the SSH command set. As I specified, we only have around 80 to 85 resource types for which we can manage the passwords. As we know the commands for it, we have provided out-of-box supports for those resource types. However, if we have multiple vendors, and even multiple for each vendor will have a different set of commands to reset the passwords based on the different firmware versions or different models, etc. Right? So in those scenarios, how can Password Manager Pro manage the passwords of the ones which is not supported by us out of the box? Here, the requirement is pretty simple. All you need to know is this device or the server, if it supports the SSH or the Telnet protocol, or the okay, then you can very well create your own commands inside Password Manager Pro and tell how to manage those passwords. In other words, just launch a PuTTY session, connect to the device or to the server, type in the commands which you use to reset the password, okay, and have that sequence noted down. So once you have the sequence noted down, you can implement the same procedure inside our product as well. Now, let me get into the product and quickly demonstrate you how to make use of this functionality. So the feature is called as SSH command sets. Okay, so how does it work? So you have to add your own set of commands. Let me take an extreme switch as an example, as I told you. So for my extreme switch, I need basically 3 commands. First one is I have to go to the config mode. So I'm just typing config, enter. So I have a config t with a hash prompt. So this command is already present. The name of that is going to be config-t with hash. So I'm not going to touch this since we already have it. The next command for me to after config-t is on the device, I have to type in username followed by the actual name. Okay. And then I have to type a password, the new password, and the privilege 15, whatever I want. So that particular command is not present inside this product. Okay, so I have username, login, I have to type in the password, and I have to type in privilege 15 after that. So that particular command is not available inside this. So I'm going to add that command here. So I'm typing in extreme and I'm typing in username, after which I have to pass the username which needs to be fetched from the Password Manager Pro. So we have provided all the possible placeholders here. So I'm just copying the placeholder which is called as login name, and then I'm executing the command password, followed by I have to parse the password which gets generated from our product. So I'm just pasting this, and then I have to pass one more command setting, privilege 15. So this is the command which is going to be used on my extreme switch. So I have given that command, and the prompt after this command gets executed is going to be hash. So I've just put hash and I'm clicking on save. And the last command for what I need is going to be the end command, or it's called as /r/n. So I'm sorry, you have to use the other //r/n. All right, so that's called as the end command. So you can see it's a new line command which is going to be used. Okay, now I have everything, all the commands which I need. Next step is I have to create a command set to execute these commands one by one. So I'm going to give here again a command set name called extreme, and first I'm going to select my uh, command which is going to be config terminal, right? So that's the command I need. So I'm going to just select config terminal. So p config terminal with hash. I'm putting it on reset. The next command is the extreme switch command which I created, and the last command is going to be the end line command which is called as pn with hash. So I've selected this, and if you need any specific commands to get executed for verifying the passwords, you can also select this. In general, for verifying the passwords, we just pass the same credentials and we try to connect to the device. We just launch a session. If the session is successful, then we will say the password is in sync. So most of the cases you might not need it. Only in certain situations where you have to log into a normal mode and then switch to an enable mode to verify the passwords, then you can also pass those commands in here. All right, so I'm just saving my command set. I have a command set created called extreme. So now I have everything defined inside the Password Manager Pro. The other type is, since I don't have my device created here or the resource type by default available here, I have to provide a name for my resource type. So I'm giving it extreme, and I have to tell Password Manager Pro, for this extreme resource type, use the command set which has been created by me. So I'm just selecting the SSH command sets from the advanced option, and I'm selecting extreme. That's it. Just click on save. So now I know how to reset the password of an extreme switch, right? So all I need to do is I have to create a resource here. Okay, let me do it manually and tell Password Manager Pro extreme switch to the IP address of it .3.4, and I have to select the resource type here as extreme. So that's the name which has been given by me, right? So that will be the very last option. And then I also need to select the strong password policy as extreme. Once I am done, I'm going to click on save and proceed, and I'm going to add the accounts for which I need to perform the password reset. Click on add, save. So now I have created a resource here which is going to use my SSH command set. Please do remember, after creating the resource, once again you have to click on configure remote password reset, and you have to select a remote login account here. So making use of this remote login account, Password Manager Pro will connect to this particular device, and it will reset its password or any other password present in it. So I can click on change password, generate a random password based on the policy, and I can click on save, which will get it updated on the target machine. So this using this SSH command set functionality, you can define your own command sets and tell Password Manager Pro how to perform the password reset, right? Fine. The next feature is the role-based access control. So as I mentioned during the beginning of the slide, another best practice is releasing the password for a user for a set amount of time and then resetting the passwords immediately after that, right? So let's see how that functionality works inside the product. So that particular feature is called access control workflow. So here we have a setting where you can specify the amount of time for which the password access should be available to the user, after which the important option is to reset the password. So once the users are done with the password will get automatically changed on the target machine. So this is one of the best practices which you can follow in order to avoid being a victim of attacks like password spraying. And the next functionality is going to be allowing the end users to connecting to the target machines without revealing any sensitive credentials like passwords. Another best practice. So let me show you here. We have an option in the Password Manager Pro, basically where you can disable the end users from seeing the passwords in clear text. You can click on save. Once this is done, the end users, they will not see any of the passwords in the clear text, but they are allowed to take a SSH or a telnet session from this tool. And the important aspect is whatever they type during the session was going to be completely recorded and stored as a video. So this way, again, you can follow the best practice to avoid being a victim of a password spraying or any attack for that reason. All right. So the next one is going to be scheduling automated password reset, right? So we know how to reset a password for individual accounts. How do you do it in bulk? So we have provided an option called groups in Password Manager Pro, where you can group a set of similar devices. For example, if you have extreme switches, you can group all your extreme switches, or if you have a Cisco device, you can group them all together. Once they are being grouped together, you can also perform a password reset in bulk. So we have two options for grouping, and I believe this has been explained in the previous session. So let me just jump directly into how to reset the passwords on schedule basis. So we have something called periodic password reset next to every um, group. So where you can schedule the password reset, and you can also get a pre-notification where a recipients mentioned here will get a notification that these are the passwords which are going to be reset, and you can select the mechanism how the passwords has to be reset, and then you can schedule the time interval like 30 days, 60 days, or monthly ones. Post that, you can also select the recipients to whom the notification has to be sent about the passwords which are being successfully reset and for which it has been failed. Right. So this is how you will be able to schedule or automate the process of resetting the passwords for on a scheduled interval. So that comes to the end of my session. If you have any questions, please raise them and I will be glad to answer them for you. So I've got a question here stating in the screen you have disabled configure password reset on remote resource. Do you need to enable that? Yes, since this is a test environment, a demo environment, I have disabled the option of resetting the passwords on the target machine. All right. However, when you do it on your production service, you can very well enable it, right? So you can, if this box is being checked, Password Manager Pro will connect to the target machines and update the passwords. If this is unchecked, it will only update it locally, right? So any other questions? Okay, so I don't see any other questions here, right? If in case you got any other questions, please feel free to raise them or send an email to support@passwordmanagerpro.com and we will be glad to answer them. And thank you once again for joining, taking your time during the busy schedule and joining today's webinar. Hope it was useful and informative. Thank you once again. Have a nice day. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you.